All right, guys, here we go. Welcome in. It is another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk. It's all about college hoops here. And as we take a deep breath on this Friday, he is Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, and it is going to be a monster weekend here. Of course, the SEC and Big 12 get to do their little crisscross here this weekend. It is going to be a monster weekend. Looking forward to Florida and Baylor, along with a couple of others. But we did have, of course, a few games on the board last night. And, Ralph, we have we got 10 on the board here today. So we definitely have a couple of games to dive into. We will do that. But a recap of last night, Ralph. I mean, all in all, Ralph, it was an interesting night. But, again, we still have one of those situations. You and I talked about it. Big Ten. Teams on the road. What in the world, Michigan State, man? You know, I guess Ohio State is, I guess they're back. I guess Michigan State, I guess Indiana's they're a contender now, aren't they, at home?
Yeah, you know, they're probably, you know, I think they're in the high 30s in my power ratings. I don't have them in front of me, maybe low 40s. But, yeah, they're in the mix where they're clearly good enough. They're winning their home games. They steal a couple road wins, and you know we're seeing. What we're seeing in the Big Ten is a wide open conference. Every opponent, every team has at least 2 losses now. So, what the hell? We're 8 games in, and Illinois is tied for the conference lead. So it just goes to show you, and Ohio State is in third last place when, you asked people a month and a half ago, they would have said, oh, it's going to be Maryland or Michigan State or Ohio State at top of the Big Ten. It's
amazing. And, of course, wouldn't you know it, Ohio State makes our list here of big upsets from yesterday is, it started off so good, Ralph. They came into halftime, right, 9-point lead. You're going, all right, this is, they seem to be putting it back together. Michigan has struggled on the road. You and I have talked about, all right, when is Minnesota going to put it all together? Well, they put it together in the second half because they took it and then they ran away with it. And, they were an 8.5-point dog and still managed on the road in a tough place to play. 62-59, they got the job done. Ohio State just melted at the end. That's crazy. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yesterday.
That's just nuts. 17 upsets by dogs of 2.5 or more. 2.5 or more. And you're saying, Ralph, that we had a situation where of the 55-50, like there was a monster amount altogether of just if you're not playing money lines at some point at this point in the game here, like you said, sprinkle a little something on that money line, you're out of your mind, especially because 2.5 points, Ralph, is the hell is, at this point you probably should be playing the money line if you like a dog like that.
Yeah, we're not going to say, Minnesota won. I'm not telling you to bet Minnesota on the money line.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what? If you're betting 3 units, nothing wrong with betting 2.5 on the game and 1/2 on the money line.
Great idea.
And I'm certainly not telling you to bet 25-point dogs.
Right.
We're taking those out of the equation.
Yeah.
But when you have those dogs, my thought pattern is basically if a dog is 3 or less, I usually go 3 and 1 if I'm betting 4 units. 3 units on the line, 1. If it's over 3, I bet 3.5 and 1/2. So I always like having some action on that. And rarely, there are times where I have a 10 or 11 or a 12-point dog where, I normally wouldn't bet the money line. If I think they have a legitimate shot, yeah, I'll put maybe a quarter of a unit or a half unit on that as well.
Yep, great advice. And, of course, maybe the biggest upset ever is UCLA actually won a game on the road here, Ralph, against Oregon State. What the hell was that? It was an 8.5-point spread all day. And then UCLA goes into Oregon State and just handles their business, man. It was kind of a bit of a head scratcher, but maybe Cronin's getting to the new kids, huh?
Well, I looked at my numbers, Joe. My numbers clearly favored UCLA. I mean, their offense has improved, their defense has improved, and Oregon State down the stretch has just played horrible defense. And, it was a slower pace game, and that wasn't a surprise to me. I had someone call and ask me that was interested in the Oregon State money line. And I said I wouldn't bet it. I give UCLA a shot to pull the upset. So, again, we're looking at conference play now, and you really have to start looking at what these guys did their last 4, 5, 6 games. And don't look at those year-to-date stats because we're seeing a lot of swings. We see some injuries. Part of the reason I had a 5% play yesterday on Washington, and that game went down. Well, the question is, why has Washington struggled so much? Well, they struggled because they lost their point guard. They had a Kentucky transfer who started every game up and through like the UCLA game. They really struggled. That was Quade Green. He started the first 14 games. They've really struggled. They went to a freshman who was a backup the last couple games in Marcus Thomas, I think. It's TSOMH, a weird pronunciation. And they thought they were going to have it better. So I expect Washington, despite them falling apart on me and costing me a 5% win yesterday by not scoring the last 3.5 minutes, I expect them, because he played well, to start playing better and look like the old Washington down the stretch. So, you got to pay.
Yeah, I got to tell you, too, it was, Pac-12 last night certainly delivered from an excitement standpoint. Oregon, USC, it was a game we touched base on. Or USC, getting 9 points, almost double digits there in some places, 10 right at tip-off, and takes them to double overtime. But, boy, Chris Duarte, if it isn't Pritchard, it's Duarte, and these big moments at home in double overtime. He really just took it over at the last couple of minutes there and just said, yeah, none of this. And they end up winning by 9, so those that had it would push, Ralph. But it's Oregon, tough place to play. But USC, I give them credit, man. They as a 9-point dog, they hung tough there.
USC's, they're right about where they started, 15-4, no bad losses. I guess you might call Temple at home a bad loss, but losing to Marquette, Washington, and Oregon, and Oregon in double overtime on the road, Washington on the road, is certainly nothing. Andy Enfield has them playing well. You've got your 4 established guys. He keeps messing around with the one position, trying to find the right mix. But, they're a team that is going to get to 20 wins, and they need to steal a win somewhere to get the committee's eyes. But when I look at those top performances, I tweeted out the sheet this morning, Joe, and let people see it. How about, Taylor and Adams at Austin Peay, 37 each?
Yep.
How often do you see a pair of teammates each score 37 points?
Nope.
That's pretty dynamic.
Yep. Awesome stuff. In the Delaware game, too, Justin Mutz was great because he ends up winning it for him by going coast to coast, Ralph, with about 3 seconds left, goes with a length of the floor, taking it from under his basket to manage to somehow make a layup to put him up with almost no time left on the clock. Delaware takes care of Hofstra at Hofstra there. Also an exciting game. So some of these same names, some of these same teams that we're starting to see, and, of course, some of the covers from last night that really stuck out with everyone. Yeah, Drexel just threw up all over themselves there against Northeastern there, Ralph, at 24.5 points. It was an 8.5-point game. And, 24.5 points is a bit of a head-scratcher from them coming off of that win against William and Mary, and UC Irvine, same situation.
Yeah, the Drexel, I like the Drexel the way they're playing. But, I left it off my card, and when I sent it to my clients, I basically said this. Listen, Drexel was off their best game of the year, crushing William and Mary. Northeastern was off a road overtime loss as a favorite. So, you have that perfect storm coming back. One team pissed that they lost as a favorite in overtime. The other team off a perfect game winning as a dog. And, I stay away from those situations because there is some frustration to take out, and they did do that. If you note, we're accustomed every couple days to seeing the highest over covers having an asterisk, but how about Bakersfield and Utah Valley?
Yep.
That game was 50-50 in regulation, so it goes to overtime, and they still go 18 under with the asterisk, which means one overtime game.
Crazy.
Multiple asterisks means multiple overtimes.
And, of course, back to that's the St. Mary's we know and love there, taking on San Francisco. How about that for 34.5 points under in regulation, Ralph, no less, at 140.5, taking on the Dons. And St. Mary's went into halftime losing this game, actually, down 6 or 7 points. So it was a big They just kind of shut it down after that and said, you're not going to score very much here, San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco going through their changes, and St. Mary's had some higher scoring games there where some teams got them from behind and they had to press tempo. And we know St. Mary's, they're a very unique team because normally you think slow tempo like St. Mary's and you think average offense and elite defense. Well, they have an elite offense. They're one of the most efficient offenses. They just pass the ball. Passes in the games that they are an efficient offense, but they are just slow tempo that they don't mind. Yep. Almost going back thinking of the Princeton days. Princeton always shot a high percentage. They just didn't take many shots.
It's kind of exactly got that feel there, and it was good for them. Big win there for St. Mary's. And of course, guys, we got, like we said, a couple of games here on the board today. Some interesting matchups, but tomorrow is going to be a monster day, as is Sunday. But we like to take a look at maybe some trends and angles here on the board today, Ralph, for a couple of these games. What'd you come up with?
Yeah, well, a couple guys reaching out to Twitter and said, hey, thanks for those yesterday. There were some couple easy winners. Number one, there's a couple of teams playing tonight with big marks. Siena 1-11 against the spread their last 12 games, and they're winning. I think they're 5-7 straight up in that group. So, when teams are winning games and losing against the spread, you get value. When teams like North Carolina are losing straight up and ATS, it's when you lose the value. So the true value in these angles are finding teams that are winning games straight up and losing against the spread, or teams like Texas A&M who, when they're a dog, they're covering but not losing those games. Yale, I actually lean the opposite side of Yale, in this Ivy League game, but Yale's 14-3 against the spread their last 17 games. St. Peter's a team 15-6. Their last 21 games against the spread. Joe, I'm just taking a quick look at tomorrow. A couple of these top for Saturday. Cal State Fullerton now 12 straight losses against the spread at home. Wow. Alabama on an 11-0 run against the spread. North Florida, a team you talked about a couple days ago. Yeah. North Florida now. North Florida 14-1 against the spread on the road. Tennessee Martin, a team that played, and we talked about them, 18-3 over under. And then Rutgers, 10 straight covers. Again, people think of Rutgers in the Big Ten and they think they're a dog and they can't handle the role. They've handled the role.
They absolutely have. There's a couple of featured games, and by the way, kudos to North Florida taking down Liberty at home last night, adding to that crazy record and trend that we threw your way yesterday in that game about how many games they've won or covered in that spot at home. I mean, going all the way back to last year, it was crazy. They did it again as a dog last night at home over Liberty, who had been, I think, 19-1. There was just some crazy number along those lines. But we got two featured games tonight, Marquette Butler and Wisconsin Purdue. We will talk about. We got some moves as far as the line goes. But one of the games that's seeing a little bit of action here in the MAC, Ralph, Buffalo which usually to me signifies, well, we're probably going to get up-tempo. We're probably going to get some points here. Kent State will be visiting them, and Buffalo, actually, the total at 158, it's going down. It's down to 155 right now. But, Buffalo is usually been synonymous with the over, given what we've seen from them thus far. But not so much here tonight. Looks like it's going the other way.
I think it's going the other way because you have two guys that are near the top of the MAC, and it's going to be a battle. Mm-hmm. Looking at numbers, though, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with the overplay. Mm-hmm. Buffalo, yes, Nate Oates went to Alabama, and they're playing as fast as anyone, but Jim Whitesell took over, and they actually are number 2 in the country as far as possessions per game, or as quick as they shoot the ball. So, only one team in the country faster than Buffalo shooting. And Kent State's in the top 120 or 130. So, I understand from a battle standpoint, but raw numbers tell me that I would actually lean over in that game.
Give me your thoughts, because we got another mover here in the Horizon League. Wright State, we've talked about this. Wright State, kind of the class, but Northern Kentucky, not too bad in their own right, but Wright State opens up as a 2.5-point favorite, Ralph, and it's shot up to about 4 now, it seems. Also, the total creeping up from 140 to 143 in this Wright State Northern Kentucky battle tonight.
I actually have Northern Kentucky as the cream of the crop. I have them as my top-rated power rating team, in that conference. Wright State is close behind. But even with me having Northern Kentucky slightly higher, I still made this line 3. Okay. So I'm right from where the opener was. I'm between the opener and where the current number is. My number's 1 away. I have no interest in this battle. It'll be a war. I mean, it really is. It basically is for the Horizon, because Green Bay, they're not going to keep up with these two. So this is really for the early championship for the Horizon League. And it's one of those games, just because we study doesn't mean I have an opinion on every game.
Sure.
The line is where I think it is. I think Northern Kentucky's a little better team. Wright State, a very strong, one of the strongest mid-major home courts, not to the Baylor level, but right behind that. So, it's a game that I expect to go down to the wire, and I'll be watching ESPNU tonight because that game does interest me.
No edge is no edge, guys. You shouldn't be playing games if there's no edge. So, sometimes it's best to just be a fan and kick back. But to your point about Wright State, they've got losses here by 1, 2, and 4 points, along with 1 in overtime. So every game they play, Ralph, they're in it, and you're right. It's going to be a monster of a game here tonight, and so are the two marquee matchups.
You know what? I want to go back, and we're going to talk about one of these marquee matchups, Joe, but look at the total in Wisconsin-Purdue. How many times have you seen a Wisconsin and Purdue total go up 5.5 points from the opener?
Never.
79% of the money on that over. So, that caught me as
it's the biggest handled game of the night. So, that seems to be where the money, because they're not going near the line. Is it 4? They're not touching it, Ralph. They're going near the total here.
Yeah, I'm pulling up their history. Give me 1 second. Well, let's just transfer over. We're going to talk about this as one of the two marquee games. This, of course, on Fox Sports 1, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I actually reached out to Fox Sports 1 and said, you guys do a hell of a job bringing quality college basketball to Friday night with this Big Ten, Big East doubleheader each week. It really, if not, we're talking, we'll be talking Ivy, we'll be talking MAAC games, and, maybe a couple other random games. So with this Fox Sports 1 doubleheader, it's been awesome. Pulling up the history, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Last 9 in the series have gone 2 overs and 7 unders.
Wow.
But the totals have been 131, 137, 134, 137, 129, 130. So nothing under 127. So you see they popped this 111 because of Purdue's lack of offense of late.
Right.
And, I think they did pop it a little too low. So, we're looking at two of the 10 slowest teams. Wisconsin, to me, has a much better offense than Purdue. Purdue has a little better defense this year. It really is. It's almost a must-win for Purdue. You're 1-4 your last 5 games.
Yep.
You just lost at home to Illinois by 17 points. You have to go to Rutgers on the road your next game. Can you imagine a Matt Painter team with this Rutgers? They lose tonight and they lose to Rutgers, and they'll be 10-11 on the season.
Yep.
There's going to be an uproar in Purdue if you are going into February 1st with a losing record, which is possible if they don't win this game tonight.
Yeah, away from home, the Badgers are averaging right around 60 points per game, guys, and like Ralph said, slow. The under 6-2 in Wisconsin's last 8 overall, 6-2 in the last 8 meetings played between these two teams. I don't think that should shock anybody, Ralph. It's actually kind of crazy. So I think the under, where is it up to? About 116 and a half now. Is probably not a bad way to look at it.
Yeah, it's another game. Again, I'd like to give more opinions on this, but it's a game I'm interested in, but yep. I think the numbers are where they should be, and I'm not going to force a bet if there's not the value there it needed to be.
Yep. Talk to me about Marquette and Butler there, Ralph. 137 and a half. This one opens up at it's now coming down to 134. 5 points is what Butler is laying. They've struggled as of late here, but they are getting a little love there on the side. 6.5 I see across the board in this matchup.
There's only one way I could go, and I did a video at WagerTalk.com. Anyone that wants to go more in-depth in this game, I did a video on Wednesday about this game, and to me it is a circle the wagons game because Butler's off 3 losses, and we talked about it. A loss to Seton Hall isn't bad. A loss at DePaul isn't good, but it's not horrible. And then you lose to Villanova, not bad. So any of those in a situation, isolated situation, isn't bad. But when you're Butler and you've lost 3 straight games and you're off a home loss and you're on your 4th straight game, I do think it's a circle the wagons game. And when I look at, Marquette, you have a potential player of the year candidate in Marcus Howard, no question. But, Butler has Kamar Baldwin to be able to guard him. Baldwin's 6'1". He can slow him down. It's going to take away from some of his offense, but they got other guys to go to that board. And then when I look at Marquette and I look at who they've played as far as top 25 defenses go, and they lost. They only scored 55 against Seton Hall. Against Maryland, they only scored 63, lost by 21. Against Wisconsin, they scored 61 and lost by 16. And they did beat Purdue, scoring 65. So against the elite defenses, they have been slowed. To me, again, I would be on Butler on this game.
Yeah, it's listen, Butler defends the 3 like one of the best teams in the country to do it. If they do it in this game tonight, I think they've had only one game that's at least 130 points for a total, Ralph. It's only gone over once. I think the under will hit rather easily if Butler plays the kind of defense at home that we think they can. It's right, the number. I agree with it coming down from 137 and a half. It's I don't think it'll get to 130, but Butler's got to they got to be that defensive team we know they can be, especially defending the 3 tonight against Marquette.
Great point, Joe. You look at Marquette, and they are not a good 2-point shooting team. From 2 points, they're number 295 in the country.
Yep.
Where they get their points is they are number 7 in 3-point percentage in the country, shooting 40%. Well, guess what? Butler is number 12 in the country, only allowing 28.4%. So, Again, the matchup to me clearly favors the Bulldogs.
Yep, absolutely in this game. And, guys, small card here tonight, but don't forget, if you head over to WagerTalk.com, make sure you head over to Ralph's page there at the Cal Sports page because it's going to be an absolute monster weekend, including games between the Big 12 and the SEC, including number 1 Baylor taking on Florida, which should be a lot of fun to check out. Tennessee taking on Kansas, and the list goes on. Great matchups all weekend long. And get your plays there at WagerTalk.com. Make sure you head over to the Cal Sports page. So, best bets here, Ralph. Where are you going? Relatively small card here, but are you leaning one way or the other?
Yeah, I do have one play up at Wager Talk, and this is a game that was in the mix. This was really my number 2 play, and I'm playing against that Siena team that's on that ATS streak. You look at what they've done in conference play. The teams, they play, of course, in the Metro Athletic, the MAAC, as I call it. Siena has played the number 1 toughest schedule. So, their 2-4 record, you could say, is okay. But in conference play, they're number 3 on offense and they're 10 on defense. Their defense has really struggled. Marist, the complete opposite. They played the number 2 schedule and they're 3-4. They've had the number 11 offense and their defense is better. And again, when I look at what I do over the last 4 weeks and come up with a number, I think this line should be closer to 6 or 7. I'm happy to take Marist plus those extra points. Siena's beat them both times last year. It's not as if though they're trying to be motivated to run him out of the gym because they have any revenge. They don't have that situation. So I am fading the Saints, and I will be on the Red Foxes of Marist.
Love that. And, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bulls here tonight, Ralph. I just don't see at home any reason why. It's a short enough number, 3.5 here, guys. And they have been great. They've rattled off 4 straight wins. They started 0-2 in the MAC, but like you said, up-tempo, and they are flying. And even though that number is coming down, I got no problem with going at the over, but I think this is a game where the Bulls will not only cover, but they'll do it rather easily, I think, especially at home against Kent State. So I'll take the Buffalo Bulls here tonight, Ralph, against a little MAC action football, and I'd probably split the bet, too. Take the over and take the Bulls.
And it's a Kent State team that has really struggled. I mean, they're off 3 straight losses to Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan and Northern Illinois, and none of those 3 teams compared to Buffalo. I agree that the line seems a little short for the way the Golden Flashes are playing.
Absolutely. And guys, again, WagerTalk.com. Get there this weekend. Plenty of opportunities here to make it a profitable week. Of course, in college hoops, and it starts by heading over there at WagerTalk.com. Get to the Cal Sports page, and make sure you're tailing Ralph on Twitter, too, at CalSportsLV. So, Ralph, as always, it's a pleasure, my friend. Good luck with the plays today as well as the weekend. We get to come back on Monday and break it all down again for everyone. So, good luck, my man.
Joe, have an awesome weekend. We'll talk to you in 71.
Good luck, guys, with your plays. We'll be back on Monday. Head over to WagerTalk.com.